Nicholas goes on a 2-year world tour as his dancing goes international. But he has a problem. How in the heck do you trade overseas? He looks for solutions. One is that he'll communicate with his broker via telegram or cable. He decides on the weekly publication Barron's to identify any stocks that might be moving up and has them sent by airmail ahead of his schedule in terms of where he's traveling. The daily telegram contains the closing price of his stocks. He creates a special code of strings of letters and numbers. A letter denotes the company name. The number denotes the closing price. He could follow his stock with this telegram. He adds the high and low for the day. Too many figures might overcrowd his daily cables. He doesn't initially ask for volume quotes, since he feared that too many figures would overcrowd his daily cables. He writes, "My selections were high-volume stocks anyway, and I thought that if the volume contracted, I'd notice it in Barron's a few days later," which is absolutely true. Nicholas has a routine. He checks the stocks he owns daily. He uses Barron's weekly to find high-volume stocks. He operates about 4 days behind the market. When he sees a high-volume stock in Barron's, he's already 4 days behind because of his world travels. He brings himself up to date with this week's range and close. For instance, one example of a message would be, "Cable this week's range and close, Chrysler." If the stock was behaving well in the 60-65 box, he would wait to see if the 4-day quotations from New York showed this. If so, he would decide to watch the stock. If satisfied that a stock is pressing towards a higher box, he would be cabling New York his on-stop buy order or buy-stop order is good till canceled unless otherwise specified. This always coupled with an automatic stop-loss order in case the stock dropped after he bought it. A typical cable looked like this. Buy 200 Chrysler 67 on-stop 65 stop-loss. If, on the other hand, his broker's cable showed that it had moved out of the 60-65 box during the 4-day lag, he forgot about it. It was too late to act. He had to wait for another opportunity. He was forced to narrow down his operations to a few stocks due to the cost of his telegrams. This gave him, at the end of the day, a big advantage. He had no phone calls, no confusion, no contradictory rumors, and this gave him a detached view. He only handled 5 to 8 stocks at a time. He was very focused. He was influenced by nothing but the price of his stocks. He couldn't hear what people said, but he could see what they did. It was like a poker game in which he could not hear the betting, but he could see all the cards. This was invaluable. Poker players would try to mislead with words. They would not show their cards. If he did not listen to their words and constantly watch their cards, he could guess what they were doing. He first tries paper trading, but it didn't work. He had to put money on the line. As soon as he invested $10,000 in a stock, the picture became very different. With no money involved, he could control his feelings. But as soon as he put dollars into a stock, his emotions came floating quickly to the surface. He slowly became accustomed to this new type of operation and started to feel more confident. Only one particular fact bothered him. Sometimes some of his stocks made inexplicable moves, which had no relation to their previous behavior. This baffled him. It was while he was looking for an explanation that he made a momentous discovery. He realized he was on his own. No guru could guide him. He was completely alone with his daily telegrams and his weekly issue of Barron's. If he wanted an explanation, he could only turn to them. He plunged into Barron's until he discovered the inexplicable moves in his stocks usually coincided with some violent move in the stock market. He was completely disregarding the possible influence of the general market. This was no better than trying to direct a battle by looking at one section of the battlefield. He adds the closing price of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. He thought that this would give him a clear picture of how the general market behaved. His telegrams now read like this. And by the way, this chart is the S&P 500. It has 500 stocks in it as compared to the Dow, which only has 30 stocks in it. He reasoned like a child that if the average was going up, so would his stocks. But this was not true. Each stock behaved differently. He could not apply mechanical standards to the relationship between the index and individual stocks. He decides to only use an index to determine if he was in a strong or weak market. He realizes that the general market cycle influences almost every stock. The main cycles, like a bear or bull market, usually creep into the majority of them. This was a finishing touch on his theory. His routine is as follows. He first compares the prices of his stocks with each other. Then he compares them with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. After that, he weighs their trading range. He evaluates whether to buy, sell, or hold, and he does this automatically without further analysis. Simultaneously, he tries to train his emotions. He worked it this way. Whenever he bought a stock, he wrote down his reason for doing so. He did the same when he sold. Whenever a trade ended with a loss, he wrote down the reason he thought caused it. Then he tried to avoid the same mistake. These cause of error tables helped him immensely. As he drew them up one after the other, he was learning something from each trade. This is an example right here of the cause of error table. And in this case, Island Creek Coal, he bought too late. Joy Manufacturing, the stop loss was too close. Eastern Gas and Fuel, he overlooked a weak general market. Alcoa, he bought on a decline. Cooper Bessemer was just simply the wrong timing. Just like people, writes Nicholas, they faithfully reflect the character of the people who buy and sell them. Some are calm, some are slow, some are conservative. Others are jumpy, nervous, and tense. The experience gained through his cause of error tables became one of the most important of all of his qualifications. Some stocks Nicholas finds easy to predict, consistent in their moves, and logical in behavior, and some he could not handle. Each time he buys, they cause him injury. He begins to take the view that if a stock slapped him twice, he'd refuse to touch it anymore. Like driving a car, the driver can be taught how to use the accelerator, the steering wheel, and the brakes, but he still has to develop his own feeling for driving. No one can tell him how to judge whether he's too close to the car in front of him or when he should slow down. This he can only learn from experience. He could not guarantee that a stock would not catch a cold tomorrow, but this did not upset him as before. Even his mistakes didn't make him unhappy. If he was right, so much the better. If he was wrong, he sold out. This happened automatically as something apart from him. He was no longer proud if a stock went up, nor did he feel wounded if it fell. He realizes that stocks have no value other than the price quoted. Many people hold stocks for many months to obtain long-term capital gains. This he considers dangerous. He might lose money by holding a falling stock just for tax reasons. He decided he would trade in the market by doing the right thing first, follow what a stock's behavior commands, and care about taxes later. The best way to legally avoid taxes is to first open a Roth IRA. If you have a side business outside your salary job that files federal taxes under an employer identification number, you can further reduce taxes by opening a Roth 401k and a solo 401k for both you and your spouse. When it came to Cooper Bessemer, this stock was one of the most successful trades Nicholas Darvas made. He bought 3 times, each time for 200 shares. 2 operations ended with a loss. The third made him a sizable gain. Here's the details. Notice how he fished the stock for 3 months. He loses $334.91 in November, then $445.70 in December. Then he makes $2,575.55 in April. In a staggering series of events, a few other stocks like Dresser Industries and Reynolds Metals behaved equally well and gave him satisfactory profits. He buys Baltimore and Ohio Railroad at 56 1/4. He thought it was in a 56.61 box and would advance, but it started reaching down. He sold it for $55 for a 2.2% loss. Then he tried Dobeckman. He judged it was in a 44.49 box, so he bought it at $45. It began to sag, and he sold it for $41 at an 8.9% loss. He bought Daystrom at $44 because he thought it was rising to a 45.50 box. He sold out at 42 1/4 for a 4% loss, and then he bought Foster Wheeler at 61 3/4. He thought it was only in a 60.80 box. When it turned slowly against him, he sold out just below the $60 frame at 59 1/2 for a 3.6% loss. Aeroquip was the last one. He'd bought it at prices ranging from 23 1/4 to 27 5/8. He watched it climb towards $30 and waited for the 31.35 box to evolve. He was stopped out at 27 1/2 for a 0.5% loss. On Friday, August 26, 1957, he finds himself without a single stock. His automatic stop loss had sold him out of everything. In 2 months, every one of his stocks had slowly turned around. One by one, each had sagged through the bottom of their boxes, and one by one, even if it was only a question of a half a point, they were sold. He fidgets. No opportunity seems to appear. He did not know that the greatest bull market was at the end of one phase. It was several months before the financial media declared a bear market. All analysts agreed that prices collapsed. All these opinions were expressed in hindsight, when it was too late. His system saves him. He realizes that it was impossible for him to time great historical turning points in the market. His system of ducking out quickly with his stop losses made such an assessment unnecessary as Wall Street prices continued to fall. He made the joyful discovery that his method had worked much better than he'd ever dreamed. The prices slid very low indeed. Half of his investment would have been lost. When he looked at the table, he thought this: if his stop losses had not taken him out of the market, he could have lost 50% of his investment. He would have been like a man in a cage, locked in with his holdings and missing an opportunity to make a fortune. The only way he could have escaped would have been by smashing out, taking a 50% loss, possibly ruining himself and gravely impairing his confidence for future deals. He could, of course, have bought these stocks and put them away. This was a classic buy and hold solution among people who called themselves conservative investors. Nicholas regarded them as pure gamblers. How can they be non-gamblers when they stay with a stock even if it continues to drop? A non-gambler must get out when his stocks fall. They hold losses with the gambler's eternal hope of the turn of the lucky card. He thought of the people who paid $250 for New York Central in 1929. It was worth about $27 if they were still holding it today, yet these railroaded investors would be indignant if he'd called them gamblers. He finds in his statement of the first week of September 1957 that he's made up the money he lost on Jones and Laughlin, and his original capital of $37,000 is almost intact. Many of his operations had been moderately successful, but commissions and taxes had taken a great deal. When he went into the accounts more closely, he found that he had the unenviable distinction of coming out of the greatest bull market in history with a lot of experience, a great amount of knowledge, much more confidence, but a net loss of $889. Nicholas Darvis had now been trading stocks for 5 years.